Hello, my name is Casey and this is my daughter Abigail. She is 4, almost 5 months old, and this is her birth story. A little disclaimer before we start. There are going to be some gross kind of graphic parts and a lot of information. I also want to say that I was on I was on magnesium for so long that I don't remember everything exactly in order. I did do my best, but I might have missed some things or put them in the wrong order. So let's get started. Tuesday, September 11th of 2018, I remember seeing my husband very, very briefly in the morning. He was coming back from work and I was getting ready to leave to go to where I worked at the time. I do remember telling him to leave his phone sound on because I knew he was going to be going to bed and would be out of pocket if the sound wasn't on, and he would sleep through the vibrations until 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My doctor's appointment was at, I think, 1 o'clock. So, I don't know, I just felt like something was going to happen, so I told him to keep the sound on, just in case. The day before, I did have my 36-week checkup scheduled, but I did go on my lunch, and it took them 45 minutes to see me, and well, they didn't even see me. I waited 45 minutes, and they had not even seen me yet. So I had to reschedule it for the following day, which was that Tuesday. So I head to work, and I get caught up in work, and do I taste good? I get caught up in my work and we get busy, and next thing I know, I have 15 minutes to get to my doctor. So I rush out. I worked at a bank and I completely forgot to lock something up that needed to be locked up. And I didn't realize this until I was almost to my doctor. And at that point, I was already late for that appointment and I didn't have time to turn back around. So I just figured, I'll only be here for a little bit and I'll come back and no one will really notice, which, yeah. And so I get there, they see me fairly quickly. The nurse takes my blood pressure. It is very high. Throughout my entire pregnancy with this little one, my blood pressure was high, but not high enough to really alarm anybody. They really thought it was just stress because I was coming on my, I was coming on my lunch hours every time, and I didn't have a lot of time, or I got stuck in traffic, or there were people who people can't drive in Asheville. I'll just leave that there. Yeah. So she tells me to hold on. She's gonna get the doctor. She ended up actually being at the hospital performing an emergency C-section. Yeah. So, I actually ended up seeing the midwife that was there, and she told me that she was concerned that my blood pressure was so high. Yeah. And she wanted to just run. She just wanted to run some tests and check my blood pressure again once I've been settled in a little bit. So she does that. My blood pressure is even higher than it was before. This is what I deal with every day. And the test came back. Want your sock, monkey? The test came back and it was positive for severe preeclampsia. It was so severe that I was a seizure risk, and she told me that if I did have a seizure, that it was likely that one of us, if not both of us, would not survive. So she wanted me to, after we finished up there, she wanted me to get a, what's it called? She wanted me to get a steroid shot to kind of help strengthen her lungs because it was going to be a rough process for her. And and she was going to be what's called a late term preemie because I was only 36 weeks along, so she wanted to give her every possible chance that she could. So I go and I get the shot, and I'm calling my husband, trying to get him to wake up and letting him know what's going on. He's not waking up. I mean, I called him, I think a total of probably 70 times within 2 hours. But he didn't answer. He was dead asleep, and he had left his sound on too, but he just slept through it all. So I text my bosses and I let them know what's going on, that I won't be coming back to work, that I left someone open that needed to be locked. And I told them I'll keep them posted as best as I can as to what all going on. I called my mom where she worked, and I let her know what was happening, and she kind of starts freaking out a little bit and gets her stuff packed up from work so she can get home and get everything packed, and that way they could come drive up here from Texas, which is, from where they're at in Texas, a 16-hour drive. So they might have missed her birth if they didn't leave soon. So after I receive the steroid shot, I head to the hospital. My boss calls me and asks if I'm okay, if I've gotten a hold of Andrew yet, and I burst into tears, and my answer was no to everything. So they asked if I would like one of them to come and sit with me until Andrew got there. And I am so grateful that she came and sat with me, because I would have gotten so stressed out and worked up that my blood pressure would have gotten even worse, and I probably would have had a seizure. Yeah. So I am very grateful that she came and sat with me. I mean, she took time out of her work day, ended up getting home later than she would have normally gotten home, to make sure that I was okay, and that really meant a lot to me. So I'm still calling my husband at this point. I called some friends, no one was answering. It was insane. So I arrive at the hospital. I'm still desperately trying to call Andrew. I'm in tears, and I get lost trying to find where I need to go. There were no directories that I could see when I walked in the door. It's very possible because I was so stressed out and worked up that I missed it. So I got to the elevator, and I was like, I don't know where the heck I need to go. So I just hit a button, and it happened to be the right floor. And so I kind of wander out a bit, and I finally find the labor and delivery center. And I can't figure out how to get in. The hospital, they lock their labor and delivery doors. The babies wear little monitors on them. So if somebody tries to kidnap one of them, they can't get out of the room. You can't get in, you can't get out without being let in, or ringing and pressing a button to get in. Luckily, after about 5 minutes of trying to figure out how to get in, I didn't see that button that was right there. And a nurse walked by, and she asked if I needed help, and I told her I need to get in there, but I can't figure out how. So she scanned her badge and let me back there. And so I get back there, I walk up to the nurse's station, and I let them know what's going on, that my doctor's office should have called in and had a room ready for me, that I was to be induced. So they had me fill out some paperwork, and they showed me back to the room that I was supposed to be in. And then shortly after, my boss arrives as I'm getting into my hospital gown and everything. It took multiple tries to get my IV in. I was so swollen because of the preeclampsia that the first time she tried, the nurse couldn't get it in, and she told me that this was the first time in her entire career, and it was like 2 or 3 decades long, that she had not been able to get an IV in somebody. So she had to call someone else, and it took 2 of them to kind of like squish and do whatever they did to get the IV in my arm. I've actually got a scar from the first time where they tried where it didn't work. And I apparently have a scar on my other side too. And after about 30 minutes of sitting there waiting, Andrew finally wakes up and he calls me. And he is in a panic. He is apologizing profusely that he didn't hear his phone go off. He slept through it all. And I asked him, well, how did you finally wake up? Because he still had about another 20 minutes before he usually would wake up. And he said that my other boss and one of the bankers had actually sent a sheriff's deputy out to my house to wake him up. So that was an interesting thing. I'm sure it was probably full of panic for him, seeing a sheriff deputy at his door and tell him that his wife's at the hospital and that he needs to get down there now. So he was panicked, and well, we both were. And I didn't have my hospital bag packed. Like, we didn't have a birth plan. We didn't have anything ready because I still had a month, or so I thought. So he asks me what he wants me, or what I want him to pack in the bag for him, for everything. And I told him, I don't know. I haven't even gotten to think of this. I haven't read any lists on what people recommended. So I told him, I don't know, just clothes for me, clothes for the baby to come home in, a blanket for the baby, and underwear. I had no idea what to have him bring. So he packs up what he thinks I need, and what he'll need, and what she'll need, and he heads towards the hospital. It is almost an hour drive to the hospital from where we live at. And he got there in probably 30 to 40 minutes. So he was driving fairly fast, or he took some back roads that I don't know about. So he gets there, and he's coming in as the midwife is coming in and starting to explain things. My boss, she gets up and she says, tells Andrew to keep her posted and let her know if there's anything that she can do for us. And the doctor comes in to start the induction. They had already had me on magnesium, and they were starting the Pitocin. So the next step was to place the pill in my cervix. And she was telling me that they're starting the induction early enough. It was about 4:30. That it's possible that I could have Abigail before midnight, and she could be born today, or it would most likely be the next day. So it's like, okay, well, hey, I might be having my baby. I might get to meet her finally. It's only been, she's been growing inside me for 8 months. It'd be great to meet her. So they get started on that. Being induced was probably one of the more painful things I experienced during this whole process, as outside of actual childbirth. Because I was only at 36 weeks, my body was not ready to have this baby. My cervix was so high up that they couldn't reach it. It wasn't dilated at all. So having to put that pill in there, that was a very painful process. I'm surprised I didn't break Andrew's hand. And from that point on, any little bit of pain I went through, my whole body just shut down and started to shake. And it shook so violently that it looked like I was going to probably break into pieces, or because I was frozen or something. And that continued on for about a week after I gave birth. Any amount of pain, anything would cause me to shake like that.